The title of my talk is Conscious Being. What does it mean to be conscious, and what is a conscious being? And I want to start by saying this, or asking this actually. What if this is the most enlightened you will ever be? Now what? Because if you're anything like me, and I absolutely loved that video with all those beliefs that the person had taped to them, and I walked around that way. I came into the world as an effervescent, infinite being, just like each and every one of us did. And we come into this world wide open and ready to receive and to give. And some of us receive love, some of us receive affirmations, some of us receive hugs, some of us also receive messages that maybe were not good enough. In my experience, I came in very, very much aware that I had chosen to be on planet Earth to be love. It was an innate knowing, an innate memory. And then I came into the world and started hearing messages like, boys don't walk that way. It's not okay to feel that. And I developed these ideas about myself that were limited. And the process of being born on planet Earth for me has become one of, what are those stories that it's time for me to let go of that no longer serve me and no longer serve the truth? And I love that Temple talked about self-care. I've never heard someone say a unity service is 1 hour of self-care. And I love that, because isn't that the truth? Thank you for that. And thank you for the invitation, my dear friend, Reverend Temple, and Reverend Kathy as well. I'm so honored, really, to be here and to be in the presence of love. And to be the presence of love. And when we think about self-care, we might think about caring for ourselves, and we might think about caring for ourselves physically, or mentally, or emotionally. But what is spiritual self-care? And maybe another way to say it is, which self are we caring for? Right? So my spiritual essence, the truth of who and what I am, just like the truth of who and what each of you is and are, is wholeness and perfection. We came in literally as an aspect, an emanation, an expression of the one power and the one presence. Recently, I spoke at a Unity, and this came through, and it was something that I had never thought before. Unity principles are inconvenience. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I have to be 100% accountable, because if I believe that it's true I create my reality, then I also must believe that it's true I create my reality. And nothing on earth is more painful than 99% surrender. And what are we surrendering to? There's really only one surrender that ever needs to happen. And that surrender is to knowing the truth of who and what we are. That our being is unharmed and unharmable. And regardless of what has happened and regardless of what we have done, that is the ultimate truth. That is the self. And guess what? That self might sound strange to say, it doesn't even need cared for. It is whole and complete and effervescent, and there's an endless and boundless energy that exists in our spiritual essence. And the only surrender that ever needs to happen is letting go of anything that is counter to the truth of that. And so life can be really difficult and complicated, or it can be really simple. Another way to say it is, life is difficult and complicated until the moment that it isn't. And the moment that it isn't complicated is right now. Because there is literally no other moment that has ever existed in time but this one. So it is true, this is the most enlightened we will ever be. Because guess what? We're all enlightened. I had someone ask me, do you really walk around only seeing love, only feeling oneness? Only knowing your true nature? Only radiating love into the world? And I said, well, yes, I do. But sometimes I forget. Sometimes I forget that that is our natural state. There is no path to enlightenment. Enlightenment is already here. And when I understand that, and when I know that, and when I really understand, not understand in my mind, but understand in my experience, in my beingness, my own true nature, then I can start to let go of or dismantle or question every story I've ever been taught or believed that are counter to that knowing. And that is profoundly simple. In this moment, I know who I am. In this moment, I know what I am. I am an infinite being. And every idea that I've ever had that's counter to that can instantly dissolve with a decision. Our good friend Michael Beckwith says, we are not here to save the world, we are here to serve the new paradigm. And we are entering into a new paradigm right in this moment. And that new paradigm is oneness. That new paradigm is to understand who and what we are and radiate that we are not here to practice the law of attraction, because there is nothing to attract. It's already who and what we are. We are here in this new paradigm to practice the law of radiance, to be that love, to be that light, to be that joy, to literally be the presence of God, of Source, Buddha nature, love, whatever word we use. We are here to radiate that, and life is a great experiment. And I have discovered something very, very profound. When I do that, life reflects it back. So it does feel like we're attracting. But the old paradigm, and I'm going to speak for myself, this might not be true for you, but the old paradigm was there's something not quite right here, and once I attract the perfect partner, then I can be free. Once I get the perfect job, then I can be happy. Once I find the perfect minister, the perfect teacher, the perfect workshop, does anyone relate to this? Then I'll be enlightened. Once I work all these steps, or I do this, then I will be. And there's a greater reality. And that greater reality is you are already everything that you've ever sought. And that is true of every single human being. And the beliefs that we've picked up about ourselves that are counter to that seem to be part of the human journey. And we've been in a paradigm for many, many years now where we say we are spiritual beings having a human experience, right? Which is a great shift from where human beings have a spiritual experience. I woke up one day and thought, what if, because I love what if we're spiritual beings having a spiritual experience? What if there actually is no separation of what I call material, physical, mental, emotional, and spirit? What if it's all one? What if everything I've ever done and everything that's ever happened to me, and I'm using air quotes because I used to believe that it happened to me, and I love what Reverend Temple said about not blaming your parents, and I love that you gave everyone in their 20s permission to do it. Because I will tell you that in my 20s, it was my parents' fault. Everything was my parents' fault. They were horrible. How could they? How could they not see me? How could they not love me? How could she not be more loving? I chased that for a decade. If my mom could just be more nurturing, then I could be happy. My friend Gavin said, I used to blame my mother for my posture, and then I realized I can sit up straight. And it's a perfect example. Because for whatever reason, that frequency of blame, which is a very low vibration, was comforting. Because I could blame the world for the conditions of my life. I could blame my parents for not being there for me. I could blame society for not accepting me. And there was something so comfortable about it, but it kept me so small and so stuck. And there was something even comforting about being small and stuck, because then I didn't have to shine. Then I didn't have to take a risk. And then you wouldn't really see me. I believed that kept me safe. I walked into my first Unity community somewhere in the late 80s. I'm not always the best reporter of times. As a matter of fact, I did a whole talk talking about this profound spiritual experience I had in 2016 in India, and then walked away thinking, that was 2006. That was a whole decade earlier. So I don't know what time is, but I know that somewhere in the late 80s, I walked into my first Unity community. I had been someone who had read the Daily Word for quite some time. and I felt something that was magic in the air. And I heard something that was profound, and that profound teaching was thoughts create reality. Because I didn't know that yet. I thought the world happened to me, and I just needed to learn how to surrender to all of this blankety blank. What Unity gave me at that time was an understanding that I actually can create my life, that I can change my thinking and change my life. And so I set out for a decade to try to change the narrative, change the thinking. And it sounded something like this: oh, don't think that. Oh, no, the universe is going to get you. Right? I was in that for a while. In the late 1800s-ish, new thought came into awareness that brought a profound new consciousness onto planet Earth that ushered in the 20th century. And that was, we're no longer needing to surrender to a punishing God that's up there and out there, that we are the powerful creators of our own existence. And that we can change our thinking and change our life. We can actually move from being victims of the world to being in control of the world. Now, I'm using all of this language very consciously. Now we're entering into another new paradigm. And that paradigm is yes and. Yes, we can change our thinking and change our life. Yes, we can manifest the life of our dreams. Yes, it's true, we are no longer victims to the world, but we are creators of our existence. The new paradigm that's being ushered as we have moved into the 21st century is moving beyond that altogether. That it's not just about the intellect. It's about understanding that there's actually nothing to change because the truth of who we are is love itself. And so the spiritual journey is twofold: dedicating ourselves to spending time in the silence and reconnecting, which isn't actually true because we've never disconnected from our true nature, but remembering and practicing the awareness of that which we truly are, that we are indeed infinite beings. And at the same time, pretty much unlearning everything else that we've ever been taught that's counter to that belief. And then we arrive at this new paradigm where we realize that the new paradigm is oneness. That we are not only creators of our own reality, but we're co-creators in the world. And I have this new phrase that came up last week, and that is co-curious. It just came out. We are here to be co-curious with one another because judgment restricts and curiosity expands. So when we talk about the evolution of consciousness, my dear friend Reverend Maureen Bass, I'm going to tell two stories. One story, hopefully my husband Will won't watch this because he's like, can you please stop telling that story? And I haven't told it in 3 years, just for the record, but I'm going to tell it. But first, I want to share a story. My good friend Reverend Maureen Bass used to say, consciousness is very simple. And she would take a whiteboard and just put dots all over the board. And she said, here is consciousness. She would draw a circle around 8 dots. This is what we can see based on our level of consciousness. Does it mean the other dots don't exist? No. It means this is all I can see based on my level of awareness right now. So spiritual practice is expanding and realizing there are 12 dots, there are 15 dots, there are 16 dots. And yet the truth is life is infinite. And as I expand my consciousness, as I raise my awareness through curiosity, through openness, I often say I'm studying to be a cop. Curious, open, and present. To be open to the infinite possibilities and to understand, as I've said, that enlightenment, what if it's not a process? What if there's not a finish line? What if we're not even here to grow spiritually? What? Spirit doesn't grow, it's infinite. I grow in awareness of my true nature. I grow in awareness of all the stories that I've been carrying that have kept me stuck. I facilitated a workshop a few years ago, and I invited people to carry a backpack, and we filled it with really heavy rocks. I mean, really heavy. And they were instructed to put the backpack on and stand in front of the room and tell the difficult stories of their lives. And all we instructed them to do was to feel the weight of those stories as they were sharing them, and then asking people in the room, what does it feel like when you hear that story? And then asking them, are you ready at this point to take the backpack off? And we had these really amazing experiences, everything from someone who took it, and I mean, when she dropped it, it was thud. She was ready to let that go. And someone else, I think with heart-breaking honesty, said, I think I want to keep it on for a while more. I'm not ready yet to move beyond this story. So sometimes our stories, our beliefs, our ideas, we now call it confirmation bias, right? Our unconscious biases, we know they create reality, but sometimes we're not ready yet to move beyond them. Maybe they are comfortable. Maybe there is something peaceful in a way, or it feels safe about staying stuck in this story and carrying that backpack. The choice is yours right in this moment. What is your decision? Do you want to hold the backpack? Do you want to carry it around and feel that weight? Or are you ready to take that backpack off and just notice what it feels like to live beyond all these stories and these ideas? And so the story I said I wasn't going to tell again, well, I didn't really tell him I wasn't going to tell it again. He just asked me to please stop telling this story, but it's in 2 of my books, and I love this story. So in the 1960s, I wasn't there. I wasn't there at the story. But in the 1960s, the Washington, D.C. Zoo was gifted a tiger from the government of India. And they brought this white tiger in to the zoo, and they were going to build her a lush, her name is Mohini, by the way, if you want to know. They were going to build her a lush environment. Everything a tiger would want to be free and to be happy. But in the short term, they had to put her in a 12 by 12 cage while they were building this lush environment. And because she was anxious, she made a circle 8 pattern in the 12 by 12 cage, and she did that as a way to manage the experience of being imprisoned. And they thought this isn't going to be long until we build this lush new environment. But days turned into weeks, turned into months, turned into years, and there were delays. And she was in that cage for many, many years in that same pattern. This is a true story, by the way. Although, we might embellish some things, but I don't think so. I think this is a true story. Finally, the day came, and her lush environment was built, and they took her out of the cage and put her in the environment. The beautiful, wide open spaces of infinite possibilities for her to play and to be her true self. And what do you think she did? Right. She went over to the corner and she stayed in that crazy 8 pattern, and she stayed that until her death. And of course we can say, what a sad story. And y'all know where I'm going with this story, right? In what ways are you right now standing in a lush environment of infinite possibilities, of creating a life filled with love, connection, awe, and wonder, and yet because at some point in your life you felt like you were trapped and you were in this crazy 8 pattern of repeating, of continuing to do the same things that have kept you limited, even though you might understand intellectually that the cage is no longer there. Are you in some way still in your crazy 8 pattern? And I love that term, right? Because I can see for myself, based on these core false beliefs, and I see it in each of us, that we're walking around in these patterns feeling stuck, when the truth is the world is infinite. So I just want to invite us for a moment to feel into that. And just imagine yourself in this environment right now, this infinite environment of waterfalls, of as much food as you want, as much play as you want, abundant. Just feel the energy of that. Feel the expansiveness of that. And now I want you to imagine that you're in that environment, but you're in this small part of it, in this crazy 8 pattern, staying with what feels safe and comfortable, even though you might know that the truth of who you are is infinite. And so what I'm inviting us to do today is to make a decision together. And only you in this moment know in your heart if you're ready to make the decision. The invitation is here, as it always is. The invitation at this moment is now to imagine that cage lifting and that you are in this incredible environment. Everything you've ever believed would make you happy isn't required for you to be free. You are already free. Life is infinite. The truth of who and what you are is God essence, a particle, a literal particle of source energy. When I was a very little kid, and this is what I'm going to close with, when I was a very little kid, I did have an awareness that I chose to be here on planet Earth. Because the tall people were teaching me this. You ready? Have you heard about heaven and hell? Oh, no. Tell me about heaven and hell. Well, if you're good, after you die, you go to heaven. And if you're bad, after you die, you go to hell. And hell, you stay stuck in this horrible, wretched experience. And I'm like, that didn't seem true to me. And quite frankly, it seemed really counter to my spirit. But I did have an awareness, and this is as a little kid, I didn't probably have words for it, but I had an awareness at that time that heaven is right now. And that hell can be right now too. Because I was at that age where I started becoming aware of the way I heard men talking about women or people talking about people of different races or war on TV, and I didn't understand why I was here. I didn't understand why the world seemed so challenging or difficult or heavy. And I had an awareness that there were some of us who had either chosen to be here or were chosen to be here to be the light and to be the love that the world requires. Isn't that wild? As a very little kid. And then, of course, that got taught out of me. But it's there, and it's the truth. And so I am inviting you at this moment to live beyond the 12 by 12 cage that either you have built or someone else tried to put you in, or you have accepted, or your past experiences have created a belief that that's all you're capable of. You are an infinite being. We are here to radiate love, to radiate light. That is who and what we are. So I want to invite you to simply repeat after me. I am love. I am light. I am here to radiate this love. I am here to radiate this light. Life is easy. Life is wonderful. I am chosen to be love, to be light. Oh, and this feels really good. And so it is. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.